And I'm back again to give my predictions for the group stage of the 2021 Invitational. In case you didn't watch the Group A video, essentially the tournament is made up of two stages, the group stage and the playoffs. In the group stage there's two groups, A and B. Each of these groups contain 10 teams, which will all play all the other teams in the group to decide the standings for that group. The top 8 teams from each group will be put into the playoffs, and unfortunately the bottom 2 teams from each group will be going home early. However, because 2 teams are already unable to make the event, only 1 more team from each group will be knocked out, so 9 of the 10 teams in Group A will advance, and 7 of the 8 remaining teams in Group B will advance. The higher up in the standings you are for your group, the easier in theory it should be to make a run through the playoffs. Since I made my last video, unfortunately 2 members of Virtus Pro have tested positive for COVID-19, so the whole squad has unfortunately been disqualified. This means there's only 8 teams left in Group B, as wildcards were also unable to attend the event due to visa problems, so have also been disqualified. Just for the record, I think Wildcard probably would have made it 8th in this group, and Virtus Pro would have made it 4th, but obviously they now fall down to 10th and 9th. So starting the predictions, at number 8 we have Parabellum Esports. This is a mostly Canadian roster that gained their spot through the North American qualifier, but other than that event, they've only played in the Dark Zero Pro AM tournament, where they made it out of groups only to lose to both Exa in the opening round and Sonics in the losers round 1. To be honest, this roster just doesn't really excite me, and I won't pretend I've seen all the games because I don't really recognise any of these players, but due to them being a new roster and having very little Tier 1 experience between them, I think they're most likely going to end up 9th place for this group. In 7th we have the Italian MKers, who made their way to this event after some quite convincing wins against Secret, Temper and Navi in the European qualifiers. There was some accusations thrown around after they won the event, which just seems a bit childish to me. I think that any team that comes from a national league and then runs away from 3 pro teams just to clutch a win will definitely seem suspicious, but I think these guys are just very talented. Do I think they're better than Navi? No, probably not. I think Navi got caught unprepared a little bit, and even though they ended up top of the last EUL stage, it just wasn't enough, so MKers have definitely earned their spot, and even though I wish them all the best, I just don't see them making it very far in this group. Now, at the number 6 spot, we start getting to some of the bigger names in this group, and reluctantly, I think this spot has to go to the reigning world champions in Space Station Gaming. Space Station are levels above the other 3 teams I've already mentioned, and realistically, with the history of this roster, they should be looking to come at least top 3 in this group, if not the entire tournament. Unfortunately, Troy, or Canadian, announced his retirement a few months ago after this event was postponed, and SSG had used their analyst Luke to fill in for him, because they couldn't pick up a new player due to some really weird rules. Even before Canadian announced his retirement, Space Station have been on a downward spiral and recently came 7th in the NAL due to their poor performance. However, in a weird turn of events, Luke, SSG's replacement, was unable to get a visa in time to get to Paris, so Troy had to step back onto the roster for this event to prevent the whole squad being disqualified like wildcard. I think it'll be a shame if this is the final tournament for Troy, as he's won 2 of the 4 invitationals, and he's also been in 3 of the 4 grand finals, but I don't think this team really have much of a chance of getting anywhere close to the grand finals this year, so they'll have to stay in 7th, but I'll be more than happy to be proven wrong on this one. For the 5th spot, I've put MIBR. Like I mentioned in my first prediction video, this is not the old MIBR roster, with that roster mostly moving to FaZe with the exception of MKing, and the old Team 1 roster moving into this spot, now representing MIBR. This old roster has never really blown me away, but coming 2nd in the Copa Elite 6 and 3rd in the most recent Brazilian finals shows a very strong performance, but I think the format of 3 games per playday just plays into the hands of some of these other squads much more than it does this one. And for my 4th spot on this list, I'm going to put Giants Gaming. This roster has been together for a decent amount of time and have done fairly well within their region, however we all know that doesn't necessarily translate into the international level. They were knocked out of groups at the 2026 Invitational, but since then have been collecting a fair few firsts and seconds across the APAC North seasons and regional majors. I think I might be overestimating these guys a little bit, and potentially MIBR should be higher, but I want to give these guys a chance, so I'm going to leave them in 4th spot for now. Moving straight on to 3rd place, we have Ninjas in Pyjamas. This long-lasting roster were the runners-up of the 2020 Invitational, losing in a close 2-3 to a prime SSG. Since that amazing run last year, they've had a few lackluster performances, achieving 3rd in the Brazilian finals and 3rd in the Brazilian November Major, which is a shame as I think if they'd kept up that momentum, they could be looking as a favourite to win this whole event. This squad definitely has some of the best fraggers in the game, with any one of them able to pop off if given the chance. I think the best of 1 format will also favour this team in the group stage, and that's not to discredit how well they'll do in the playoffs, because you don't get to the grand finals of the Invitational for nothing. For my number 2 spot on this list, I'm going to put the North American TSM. And before all the TSM fanboys start crying in the comments about how Bolo is the best player in the world, just wait until you see guys like Nesk in the server and he'll make Bolo look fairly average. After coming third at the 2026 Invitational, TSM have consistently achieved either runners-up or first-place finishes in the North American League or Majors, up until recently in the North American League where they came 5th. They went on a 4-game losing streak at the end of the season, so I don't think it's fair to put TSM for first place. Obviously this isn't CS, so gun skill isn't the only important factor, but that's why TSM still have a chance, as they definitely have potential to make it to at least the semis. Unless they play like they did at the end of the most recent North American League, because then they might beat out Parabellum for that 9th place spot. That only leaves one team to be my number one in Group B, which is Oxygen Esports. The core of Fox A, Laxing and Vertical has helped shape this team throughout their reciprocity days up until now. They've always consistently been the 4th best in North America, just behind Space Station, TSM and Dark Zero, but this season things have changed as they've picked up the 2 young gunners in Kino and Yoga. After this update to their roster, they've managed to steamroll their way to 1st in the North American League, and I'd argue quite convincingly too. Maybe it was a fluke season and all the other teams were just taking it easy in the lead up to this event, but I think OXG may have their first real opportunity to win a major event, especially if TSM aren't able to step up. So that's it. That's my predictions for the second group at this year's 6th Invitational. I'll say it again, I think it's unfortunate about Virtus Pro and wildcard situations, but it's just the way things have to be due to the current climate of the world. I'll try to recap the group stages as best I can and keep you guys up to date with the standings, so stay tuned for that and I'll see you all soon.